enclosed in a room, my imagination becomes the universe, and the rest of the world is missing out. You are about to enter my room, so welcome to my fantasy room.
What's up, my creative fellas? Welcome to Photoshop. Here's the original image that I started with. It's just a woman with a skirt. I don't know, is it a skirt? It's a curtain. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it looks cool. First things first, because I want to post this on Instagram, I have to crop it with the right aspect ratio, and 4:5 is the best since this is a vertical image. So I'll crop it 4:5. I'll duplicate this image by hitting Ctrl J just to have a backup. And I want to separate the foreground from the background. Actually, I want to separate the model from its background so I have more freedom. And I'm gonna do this using the quick selection tool because I'm not gonna be precise here. I just want a loose selection, which is kind of accurate. I won't use the pen tool since it will take too long, and I want this to be quick, and I don't even need a precise selection here, so quick selection tool is the best. As I said, you don't need a precise selection here, but I'm just trying to make sure that everything is selected. So once I'm happy with the selection, I will click on the layer mask button to create a layer mask. Now I'll just activate the selection once again by control clicking this layer mask, and I will go to select, modify, and I will expand this selection by a couple of pixels. What you're looking for is this gap here. Now I will select my first layer, which is kind of working as the background layer now. With this layer selected, I will go to Edit, Fill, and I'll choose Content Aware because I want to fill it up. Now you just gotta let Photoshop do its math, and once it's done, it is necessary because if you want to blur the background, you want to add the depth of field, you have to remove the model because you don't want to create a ghost effect. So now that we have removed the model, we have more freedom, we have more control over the background and the foreground. My next step is that I will duplicate my first layer and I will delete the layer mask, and again I am going to kind of select only the skirt. I don't know again if this is a skirt or it's a curtain or whatever it is. I will only select that because I want to have it on its own layer. I want to separate it. So again, with the quick selection tool, I will go ahead and try to cut it out of this background. Once I have selected it, I will create a layer mask, and I'll right click on the layer mask and choose Apply Layer Mask. So now we have this on its own layer. Hit Ctrl plus Shift plus U to desaturate this, because we want to play with the blend modes and we don't need any color in this, so desaturate it before anything. As you can see, there are some lines on this thing which I don't really like, and they're gonna be visible once we apply our visual effects on this thing, so we need to remove these lines. And as you've guessed it, we're gonna do this using the clone stamp tool. So create a new layer, choose your clone stamp, and just do the thing. I'll speed this up. I removed all the lines on this skirt, and now actually the fun part begins. We're gonna add the water in here. I found this image of a sea online on some free websites, and I'll use this to cover up this. Hit Ctrl T, and with the free transform, I will just place it on top of the skirt. I'll resize it to fill up the whole area. I flipped it because let me bring down the opacity a little bit, because I wanted this wave to be covering up this part of the skirt, which is kind of curvy, so that it looks more attractive and more believable. Just like that. I placed it over, and I think this is good. I'll hit OK, bring the opacity back up, and put the blend mode to multiply. So now what I need to do is to just clip this water layer to this skirt. And how do I do that? I'll merge the skirt and the clone stamp layer together by hitting Ctrl E, and now I have them on one single layer, and I will hold Alt and click on the line between these two layers to clip them together. Now I only have the water on the areas that I want, so I'll duplicate the water once more, and I'll change the blend mode this time to overlay. But the problem is that this is looking too dark, and in some areas it is too dark that you cannot see the details. So I had to remove it from some specific areas by creating a layer mask and painting over them. So I created a layer mask on the top layer, which is set to overlay blend mode, and I removed it from some specific areas by painting with a black brush. And I also did the same for the multiply layer. Since it was the main source of darkness, I had to remove it even more. Just painting with a soft brush with a black color on the layer mask to remove it from some areas. And I have also brought down the opacity of the multiply layer to about 70% because it was extreme, so I had to reduce it. And at this point I thought that I don't need this layer mask for the overlay blend mode, so I deleted it. And since I wanted to add a pattern onto the background, to the walls, I did not really need the window and all that pipes and stuff like that, all those trash in the background, so I needed to remove those as well, again with the clone stamp tool. At first I tried removing it with Content Aware, but it did not give me a good result, so I need to remove it manually. You don't need to watch this all the way through, since I'm just cloning and painting. I'll speed this up and I'll see you in a few seconds.
2,000 years later.
Alright, after a lot of struggle, I removed anything that was unnecessary in the background. And at this point, I needed to add the pattern to the walls. So I brought in an image of a clear blue sky with some beautiful clouds, really pretty. And let me resize it a little bit so it covers up all the area, just like that. And I changed the blend mode to soft light. Well, it's looking a little bit dull to me, so I needed to kind of add a little bit more, so I duplicated it and changed the blend mode to multiply. Well, that's too strong. I played a lot with these blend modes and different opacities and all that stuff. And what I found, which was working for me, was that I needed to remove the multiply layer from the bright areas using Blend If, so that it's not so strong. So I did that pretty easily. And I also duplicated it again and brought the opacity down just to add a little bit more touch to this. And I grouped everything together and named it Sky, so my layers look more organized. It was at this point that I realized that my water looks too dark, so I needed to brighten it up using a very simple levels adjustment layer. Just like that, I made it brighter. Now it's looking 100 times better. I brought in an image of a wave. I wanted to use it on the edge of the water, and I placed it by flipping like some warping, scaling and all that kind of stuff. You know what to do. I placed it where it needed to go. Also, I needed to match the color of the wave with the rest of the water, so I clipped a layer to it and changed the blend mode to color and just sampled some colors from the water and painted on the wave. It's just as simple as that. Repeated the same process for the other side. Another wave, another color matching and blending. Boop. This was looking too flat to me, so I needed to add some depth and give it some 3D look, and that is done by dodging and burning. So the way I did this is that I created the layer, hit Shift F5 on my keyboard to bring in this fill dialog and choose 50% gray and put the blend mode to overlay. Now all you gotta do is to choose your dodge tool, with a decent exposure and also your burn tool, just dodge and burn on the areas where you think you need it. I'm done with my dodge and burn. As you can see here, a huge difference. It just makes the image pop a lot more. I've got some water splash image here which I extracted out of a stock photo, and I'm gonna use it on this part of the... Again, I used some warp to shape this splash and make it sit there. I just realized that this part was way too bright, so again I used the burn tool to just darken it down a little bit. But no matter how much I tried, it just didn't work. It was like, it's not doing anything. So I decided to go back and create a new layer, and with the clone stamp tool, clone that area just like that. And that's it. It is looking 100 times better, in my opinion. And hey, guess what? I needed to make this woman look like a sea queen. I mean, make it look more like a sea queen. So I created a hue saturation adjustment layer. I colorized it to some blue tone. I inverted the layer mask and I painted only on the shirt to change the color. I also needed to change the hair color, and I did it using a curves adjustment layer. I tweaked the red and the blue and the green channel a little bit to change the hair towards a more bluish tone. And yeah, that's it. Then it was time to add some beautiful goldfish into the image. Then I made the fish look darker, and I also desaturate them a little bit using a hue/saturation adjustment layer. Also, I used curves to color adjust them. One of the most interesting parts in every composite is adding the depth of field, and that's what I wanted to do here. I blurred the fish one by one to give it the sense of depth of field. And finally, it was time for me to color grade my composite to bring everything together. If you don't know how I color grade my photos, because I'm gonna speed up this process, if you want to know exactly in depth how I color grade my photos, I got a video on color grading, and I'm gonna link it in the description, and also I'm gonna put it on the right hand side on the top of the screen. Make sure to check it out. You're gonna learn a lot from it. Then I created a levels adjustment layer and I darkened the image. Then I inverted the layer mask and only painted on the areas that I wanted to darken, because I wanted to bring the eye's attention to the center of the image where my model is. I always do this at the end of my composites to create a kind of a custom vignette. Then I created a layer, and with the white color I dabbed on the right side of the screen. I wanted to create a kind of a light source. I wanted to lit that area up. Then I brought down the opacity to make it look like there's a little bit of glow, a light source over there. And it was at this point that I realized I hadn't blurred the background. So I went ahead and I converted the background layers into one smart object. Then I added some Gaussian blur to the background to maintain the depth of field, like about 5 pixels. I also had to blur those patterns on the walls as well, so I blurred the sky layers, the cloud layers, and finally I created a layer above everything else. I got my blur tool and I made sure sample all layers is checked with 100% strength. I painted on the edges. You might want to do this at the end of every composite if you have a depth of field. This will help blend the foreground and the background a lot better, and to maintain the depth of field, this is a great technique and I always use it. I hope to see you in my next episode, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please click on the subscribe button and also like this video, and see you soon.